12 Houthi drones attack a U.S. ship. Then this happened. With little time to react, the USS Carney moved on its own and didn't miss. At exactly 3 a.m. local time in the Red Sea on December 16, 2023, everything seemed calm, but the crew of the USS Carney had gained serious combat experience. That night, though, they were about to try something totally new, something they had only ever learned about in classrooms. It had never actually been tested on a U.S. Navy ship before. Inside the ship's Combat Information Center, the watch team stared at their control panels, keeping an eye out for anything suspicious. Whether it was a commercial flight, a military aircraft, or something else entirely, their job was to track everything. Log its speed, heading, altitude, and potential intentions.
During what had been a pretty dull shift, a radar blip suddenly popped up. Then a few more.
But these weren't normal. Because of the ongoing conflict, most aircraft were steering clear of the area, and these blips weren't following any known commercial flight paths. As the watch team started digging into the radar returns, they tried to figure out what they were looking at. Passenger planes, military aircraft, helicopters. One of the watch officers started checking the transponder codes and modes. Usually that gives you info on what kind of aircraft you're seeing, but nothing showed up. He kept refreshing and switching modes, hoping something would pop up. But the screens remained blank, completely empty, and the contacts were getting closer, fast. This was a huge red flag.
All aircraft, military or civilian, are supposed to broadcast transponder signals on specific modes. Each mode tells you something different. For example, Mode 1 identifies the country and whether it's military. Mode 2 shows the tail number of a military aircraft. Mode 3 Alpha is used for commercial flight IDs. Mode C gives the aircraft's altitude. Sometimes the codes flash signals like 7700, which means a general emergency mid-air. But when there's no signal at all, just a radar return, you've got a serious problem. When the team realized none of the incoming contacts were transmitting anything, there was only one possible explanation: something bad was about to go down. The objects were flying at around 100 knots, way too slow to be missiles. They could have been helicopters, but the only way to know for sure was to use a system called the Slick 32. That's the ship's ears and eyes when it comes to detecting and identifying radar signals. Whether it's a ship, a plane, a missile, or a chopper. If it has radar on, Slick 32 will likely pick it up. It scans frequencies from 2 to 18 gigahertz and can detect signals over 200 nautical miles away. Then it compares those signals to a giant library of known radar types.
So if the ship's spy radar spots something 150 miles away, and it's screaming military codes with a known radar signature, you've got a positive ID. But these contacts? No transponder codes, no radar emissions. And they were flying in a loose, erratic swarm. That left only one answer: a drone swarm. Once the crew confirmed that the USS Carney was under attack by drones, the ship's tactical action officer had to act fast. There wasn't much time.
These drones were small, barely 0.01 square meters on radar, and were flying just 10 feet above the water. That made them almost invisible until they got within 15 miles. At that distance, the first drone would hit the ship in under 7 minutes.
Each drone carried a warhead of about 100 pounds. Not massive, but still powerful enough to take out the ship's radar and communication systems. That would have knocked the Carney out of action, and they couldn't let that happen.
To make things worse, the drones were approaching from multiple directions. So, we decided to take out the biggest group first, then move on to the smaller ones. The largest group, 8 drones, was closing in from relative bearing 090 off the starboard side. That's when I gave the order to fire.
The missile you would have seen shooting out of the vertical launch system is called the Standard Missile 2, or SM-2. It's the Navy's go-to defensive missile, reliable and deadly. Flying at Mach 3.5, it only takes about 30 seconds for the SM-2 missile to intercept a Shahed-136 drone. Now, you might think it's overkill to launch a $2 million missile at a drone swarm that's worth less than a used G-Wagon. But actually, it makes sense. Since each drone has a tiny radar cross-section when they're flying in a tight group, their combined radar signature is similar to that of a much larger missile. That means the SM-2 can lock onto them more easily. As it closes in on the target, the SM-2 turns on its active seeker in the final seconds of flight. with a warhead that sprays out about 5,000 metal fragments across an area of 7,000 square meters. One well-placed shot can shred an entire swarm of drones. No need for a second missile. But that first swarm was just a decoy. During a drone attack, enemies often send out unarmed dummy drones in large numbers to draw fire and confuse the defenders. It works. Your attention gets focused on the big threat, and you might miss the smaller drones sneaking in from different angles. That's the real danger.
Fortunately, the USS Carney isn't just any ship. For a less capable navy, this kind of attack could be overwhelming. But for the Carney's crew, it's just more target practice. With the big swarm taken out, 6 more individual drones were coming in, some from the front, some from the rear.
Since ships can usually only fire missiles in one general direction at a time, the captain had a choice: defend the bridge at the front and risk losing command and control, or protect the back and risk losing steering. Thanks to its 360-degree radar coverage, thanks to phased array radars, the Carney could split its focus. It launched a missile at the rear drone while keeping the front sensors locked on the 5 drones coming from ahead.
The weapon it used? The RIM 106-2 evolved Sea Sparrow missile. Destroyers like the Carney carry these in quad packs, 4 missiles in a single vertical launch cell, and they shoot out at Mach 4 right off the bat. These are point defense weapons with a range of just 27 nautical miles. But unlike the SM-2, these can be guided continuously during flight. That means the ship starts guiding the missile toward the drone the second it leaves the launcher. No time wasted. The missile took a straight line to the drone and nailed it.
As the Carney dealt with the 5 drones coming from the front, a smaller missile shot out from a rear launch cell. Since Shahed drones can't maneuver once they're in flight, they just follow preset paths. The drone kept flying straight. It didn't stand a chance. The missile pulled a tight 50G terminal maneuver from above and destroyed it instantly. Still, there were 5 drones left, and they were just 5 meters from the ship's bow. Luckily, they were heading straight into the range of the next weapon. You see that big gun on the front of the ship? That's the Mk-45 5-inch gun. It can fire shells up to 10 miles away and hit targets as high as 17 kilometers. With a drum that holds up to 20 rounds, this old-school weapon can still deliver serious firepower.
But it wasn't using the type of ammo you're probably thinking of. While it can fire everything from training rounds to high-explosive shells, none of those are very effective against drone swarms. Why? Because you're not getting a direct hit on something like a drone head-on. Best case, you get within a few meters. That's where computers come in. The Carney's fire control system makes millions of calculations every second to figure out the best time to detonate each shell.
The rounds being used here are called Mk-419 Controlled Variable Time, CVT fuses. Basically, high-tech timed airbursts. Each shell holds about 7 kilograms of explosives. You don't even have to hit the drone. Getting within 100 meters can damage it, and 50 meters can destroy it. And because the fuse is set automatically before the round is even loaded, there's no delay or risk of human error. The crew down below just loads up the ammo elevator, keeping that 20-round drum full during intense combat.
It worked, at least for a while. At the start of the fight, they'd swapped out regular explosive rounds for the CVTs. With the gun fully loaded, the Tactical Action Officer, TAO, gave the order to fire when the drones were just 5 miles out. In seconds, the Carney had fired 5 CVT rounds. Through the night vision camera on the 5-inch gun, the crew saw black smoke and broken drone pieces splashing into the sea.
But then, problem. The sailor running the gun's control system got an alert. The fuse setter had failed. Not a huge surprise since it's a rarely used feature, but it meant the 5-inch gun couldn't properly arm CVT rounds anymore. Without timed fuses, the shells were basically useless against drones. Luckily, they had one last option. Just behind the 5-inch gun is a system nicknamed R2D2, officially the CIWS or Close-In Weapon System. The Carney has one up front and one in back.
This time they used the front CIWs to stop the last 2 drones. There were only seconds left before impact. But that's all SeaWiz, as it's often called, needs. Unlike the other weapon systems, SeaWiz is completely self-contained. It even has its own radar. It doesn't need input from the ship's main radar. It can track multiple targets at once, much like a mini spy radar, though over a much smaller range, about 10 meters of tracking range and 3 miles of engagement range.
It uses a 6-barrel Gatling gun, firing 20mm rounds at a rate of 4,500 per minute. It can empty its entire magazine in under 20 seconds. But it doesn't need to. Each 1-second burst throws out about 50 to 100 rounds. Here's the wild part. It can do all of this without any human pressing a button. SeaWiz has several modes, and in high-stress scenarios like this, multiple incoming threats from different directions, the Tau likely switched it to Automatic Air Warfare, AAW mode. In this mode, SeaWiz acts totally on its own. If its radar picks up something fast and threatening, it opens fire immediately. And in a battle where every second counts, that makes all the difference.
As the last 2 drones closed to within 2 miles, the SeaWiz opened up with its trademark brrrr. It's not quite as iconic as the A-10 Warthog's gun, but it's just as devastating. The drones were shredded in seconds.
With the threat gone, the crew double-checked all their sensors. The spy radar scanned for incoming missiles, while the SLQ-32 electronic warfare system hunted for any radar-guided threats, because drone swarms are often just phase 1 of a 2-part attack. Missiles usually follow to catch a target off guard. But the crew of the Carney isn't your average crew. They're battle-hardened, tough, and ready. And Team Houthis would soon learn that firsthand, as the ship would face about 51 similar engagements between 2023 and 2024. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more from S News. We're committed to bringing you fair, accurate, and traditional news.